Throughout the history of modern humans, music has been able to inspire a myriad of emotions in people. A funeral dirge inspires feelings of grief and mourning in those who have lost their loved one. Singing happy birthday inspires joy and slight embarrassment in the person who has become a year older. And even an original love song can inspire feelings of pure, unadulterated love in the lover listening and nervousness in the singer performing. Plenty of songs in the previous century have inspired such powerful emotions in the listener, such as Heroes by David Bowie, Separate Ways by Journey, and Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. We have now passed the 1/4 mark of this new century, so I like to propose 10 songs to have come out this century, the 2000s, so far, to enter the race of the best songs of the century. This century is nowhere near done, and the actual debate can be had for a century itself, but it's good to get the debate started at the very least. There is something to be said about songs where vocals become the instruments, where the instrumentals are just for color, while the vocals of the individuals singing are there for flavor, for texture. In the game Friday Night Funkin', stages are divided by weeks, where different tracks are separated by the character who sings alongside BF. In week 1, we have GF's father, Daddy Dearest. In week 2, we have Skid and Pump, the main characters in Senior Pillow's popular animation series, Spooky Month. In week 3, we have Pico, star of a selection of Newgrounds Flash games. In week 4, we have GF's mother, whom the fandom calls Mommy Mirist on account of the name being stupid and funny. In week 5, mother and father have joined forces for a Christmas type of encounter. And in week 6, we get Senpai, star of an in-universe dating sim game, who has his sights set on winning GF's affections. The first song, Senpai, is light and breezy, showing that this is meant to be taken as seriously as a glass of spilled milk. It's all a game, and BF should just have fun. But it's when the song ends that the mask not just slips, but is completely shattered, and we see Senpai for what he is. He threatens to hurt BF before threatening to assault GF, which is when we're thrust into his second song, Roses. More than any other song in Friday Night Funkin', we feel the venom in the simulated lyrics. We feel the hatred coming from Senpai. He is genuine in how he truly wishes harm upon the duo in different ways. He'll get his way in some way, shape, or form. This song is as meaningful as any villain song from a Disney musical, and without any actual lyrics to speak of. That's the power of music, to understand someone's feelings, even if they're not singing actual words. In 2009, game development group ASCIIsoft released Tower of Heaven, their first game. In it, you play as this small thing named Ide, in their quest to climb the titular Tower of Heaven, where God provides you with an ever-growing list of laws for you to follow, which act as gameplay restrictions. Should you break any law, you are instantly smote. The game was a big success, in no small part due to its short length but extremely easy to grasp gameplay, and incredible soundtrack fitting for the Game Boy original aesthetics. The track that continues to live on beyond Tower of Heaven is its first major track, Luna Ascension. It paints a picture of one being much smaller than the task they must complete, but going in regardless. It's a track of pushing aside your fears and going for the goal. Years later, it would get remixed for Rivals of Aether through a very intricate series of Easter eggs and callbacks that would take too long to get into, and this remix, appropriately titled Luna Ascension EX, expands on the feeling of doing something in spite of the fears that normally hold you back. It's the sound of doing it scared, but doing it. It's a smaller version of a theme I personally cannot get enough of in media, the indomitable human spirit. When things go wrong in small, difficult to articulate ways, it's hard to properly portray that in music without going overboard and making the subtlety of the situation overblown and as subtle as a brick to the face. In Deltarune Chapter 4, After a series of decisions that one would charitably call not well thought out, Chris and Susie entered the second sanctuary, a much different beast than the original dark sanctuary they found themselves in earlier. For instance, the colors of our heroes is strange, almost like Susie's dark world is seen through a colorblind viewpoint. The various prophecies that show up are incomplete, vague, yet also exactly what Susie wants to hear. To top it off, the track of the same name is multiple things. Tense, uncomfortable, strangely melodic, and yet also enticing, like it wants Susie to discover all of its secrets. Once the matter of the second sanctuary is dealt with, and it becomes time to enter the dark world once more to clean up whatever mess would be left if they didn't, they are greeted by the third sanctuary. Visually, it looks identical to the Dark Sanctuary, but you're there under different circumstances, on a different kind of mission. The tone of the song is slightly different from Second Sanctuary, but in ways that matter. Instead of tense, it feels determined. Instead of uncomfortable, it feels unpleasant. Instead of enticing, it's much like a mother rushing you out the door to your first job interview. It feels purposeful, like a task one must do in order to feel secure in the idea of a job well done. It's still strangely melodic because it has bizarre time signatures all throughout and a key change at the end that hammer home that this is a serious matter and needs to be done. Third Sanctuary is, in retrospect, more in line with the theme of Undertale than Deltarune. It's determination in audio form. At the penultimate stage of any given character's arcade mode playthrough in 1998's Guilty Gear, players will be met by Testament, a very dark, gaunt individual who seems to be in league with the main antagonist, Justice, acting as their underling and serving as a distraction to allow Justice enough time to fully power up. After falling to the player, Testament's role remains somewhat ambiguous, both in terms of their moral alignments, as well as what they go and do. As a normal human, Testament was forced to become a gear, a magical bioweapon capable of felling hundreds, if not thousands of humans with little effort. Prior to becoming a gear, they were diligent and curious, helpful to those who were affected by the Crusades. After being forcibly converted into a gear, they grew to be cold, cynical, distrustful of humans, yet not wishing for their total obliteration, like one would think. Any desire to take lives en masse were thoughts, suggestions, and orders implanted by Justice, a gear capable of controlling nearly every other gear on the planet. They slowly began to grow out of this dark mindset throughout the years, thanks to the love they surrounded themselves with, specifically their adopted father, Cliff Anderson, and fellow gear Dizzy. It was through them and their humanity that Testament began to see the true beauty in humankind that had been tainted in their mind, and in Guilty Gear Strive, the player sees exactly how they have grown. They are more gender non-conforming. Their fashion is much fancier and less about just clothing themselves, as if to express themselves. Their succubi seem much happier than before, and their years traveling the world have given them a whole entire smorgasbord of jobs and hobbies, including, but not limited to, building and playing with plastic models, pottery, mountain climbing, belly dancing, watching specifically shark-themed B-movies, and wrestling. Alongside with keeping a firm grasp on their penchant for violence, Testament has regained their desire to help humanity from various disasters and calamities. That is what their theme expresses. Whether to lead the way or help someone through their darkest moments, they will fly through that darkness rather than embrace their agelessness and embracing the light of humanity and the knowledge that we're all one part of a universe. We're all one part of one chain. Testament believes in the excruciating beauty found in mundanity, flying through the night in order to see the sun rise. Testament promises to be there for anyone and everyone who could use help to pull them from darkness that they once found themselves in. They will always be there, like a weed, naturally, as a matter of course. Knowing when you've done bad is one thing, but to sing about how you're going to change in spite of knowing how often you failed and how this might result in failure again is another. And yet, doing all of that and trying again and again is a different thing altogether. In We Love Katamari, a standout track is Bluffing Damacy, first heard at the campfire stage, where you must roll a katamari with various flammable objects to keep a fire lit before bringing it to the appropriate fire pit. The song describes the individual as being an alcoholic who has made mistakes before and hurt people because of his drinking, but they continue to grapple with this vice solely because he loves his family too much to give up forever. Some would say that the act of trying and failing to kick the habit is a sign of falling into the pitfalls found within addiction, and that he would need serious help. But the fact that it's the love of his family that keeps him going in spite of his habit keeping him from being sober makes this a unique take on a situation many could possibly relate to. This song was written by series creator Keita Takahashi and is implied to be from the perspective of the king of all cosmos, saying within the lyrics that he does not want to get rid of things and wants to create new things. He's aware of this problem and genuinely wants to get better because the journey of improvement is what will make the time spent with his family all the better. Whether or not that's true for the individual in the song, the king of all cosmos, or anyone who hears this song and sees themselves within is something only time will reveal when the time comes. When confronted with what you have perceived to be the truth all your life, it can be nearly impossible to truly believe that it was all a lie. That lie can infect your memories, paint a completely different picture of what you remember, and taint what was a childhood somewhat different, but still similar to other children, dumping metaphorical black ink all over everything. In Persona 5, the fourth palace belongs to Futaba Sakura, a girl who has many different problems when you first meet her. She's agoraphobic, a shut-in, plagued by dark memories and hallucinations of a mother who hated her, and the former founder of an international hacktivist group who was using her identity to try and reveal the identities of the Phantom Thieves. In order to properly help Futaba, the gang must go into her palace, a large pyramid. Inside, they must solve many different puzzles while unlocking pieces of Futaba's true past and memories, revealing to the group what she was repressing. While you're figuring out how to navigate the tricky rooms and puzzles, you're listening to this very low-key, emotional track that stands out amongst all the other high-energy or extra-dramatic songs when in any given palace. It paints the whole experience in a very emotional, almost melancholy tone. It's what you hear when you learn the truth about Futaba and her mother, Wakaba Ishiki. Wakaba Ishiki was diligent in her studies into the human mind and cognitive science, but also a single mother that found it difficult to balance a work and home life. Though she scolded Futaba, she never hated her or even did anything untoward to her. In fact, promising that the two of them would be spending much more time together once she finished her studies. That was the case until she suddenly took her own life, walking into a street in a crazed stupor and allowing a vehicle to hit her, with Futaba watching. Adults would yell at Futaba, telling her it was her fault Wakaba killed herself, and even reading a forged suicide note blaming Futaba for making her do it, when in reality, it was all caused by a mental shutdown orchestrated by the main antagonistic force. This song reminisces from when Wakaba was there, when Futaba would continue to live like a child rather than being forced to deal with guilt that didn't belong to her, where she could live in peace with the one who really truly loved her more than anyone else. The track is called The Days When My Mother Was There. Sometimes a song can paint a picture to reveal a story that one would never figure out without doing some digging. In the original Nier from 2010, there's an abandoned factory in the mountains where machines of war were mass-produced. Why they were made en masse and why it seems to still be operational despite no sign of life being found working within remains a mystery unless you were to read up on some of the lore of Nier. In truth, I actually don't know much about the details about this factory colloquially known as the Junk Heap, but I know that it's the reason why many lives were lost and played a role in bringing the world of Nier into the state that it's in as this dystopian, dark fantasy with humanity barely struggling to survive. The song portrays this as this highly technological melody plays alongside the sounds of hammers striking metal to make the percussion. Then the vocals come in, sung in the Yoko Taro signature Chaos language, her in Nier and Nier Automata. Indecipherable, yet still bringing to the listener of this song the mental image that even with the marvels of technologies like autonomous robots meant to make production and combat easier, it's easy to go down the slippery slope of relying too much on these technologies, or even worse, giving them free will and allowing them to believe that they are greater than their creators. They become the wretched automatons, and they are but one facet of Nier's world that inspires deep introspection about how we go about touching the lives of those we know, even artificial lives. A song will be asked to do a lot of things given its place in a piece of media. It can be asked to set a scene. It can be asked to complement the actions done by a character. It can even be asked to punctuate a climactic end to a story. But in the case of Close in the Distance from Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, it's being asked to both express the vibe of being at the end of a decade-long journey, as well as inspire feelings of hope in a hopeless situation, a proverbial flame in the darkness. When approaching this massive area at the edge of the universe, named by the characters Ultima Thule, there's this feeling that the despair that is permeated throughout the plot and events of Endwalker is encroaching on the party, especially when your companions are getting picked off one by one. The song doesn't begin properly when reaching this final zone. It's restrained, almost sounding like you're hearing it from a distance on a radio. Little by little, as you hear this song that sounds very unsure, expectant, your comrades begin to disappear, seeing these alien species doing their best to not give in to despair before realizing that they're isolated and have no way of living life the way they want, and your friends wish to help them, even if it means disappearing from the sheer force of darkness and despair made manifest. You don't hear the real, true song until you've lost nearly everyone, when the penultimate of these disappearances happen, with a party member who has lived a whole entire lifetime in a different world wishes to regale someone with tales of a world on the brink of collapse and the possibilities of a brighter, more hopeful tomorrow, with that person belonging to a species that cannot comprehend becoming something or someone else. Their disappearance results in the true form of Close in the Distance playing, a melancholic yet hopeful song about how you must keep moving forward despite the struggles and hardships you have faced. There is no end until you've reached the final steps in your life, and you cannot allow despair to trick you into thinking you have reached the end before your time. Use the memories of those who got you to where you are now to keep you going. Forge ahead to reach your ending, so that way you can look back on what you have done and smile knowing you lived a life that you enjoyed. In Parappa the Rapper 2, the theme that courses all throughout the narrative is the idea of what getting older and growing up means to you and others. Parappa believes it to be various important but ultimately shallow things like getting a job at a fast food restaurant, discovering real, mature love, putting yourself through rigorous training, and getting a haircut. But the third song, appropriately titled Big, is about physically becoming larger than before, rising up above that which you feared the most, and how the mere act of becoming bigger than what you were scared of invites new fears to your mind. To become big is to see what you have left behind in your older age, and recount just how small everything was. As you get bigger, so do your interests, your passions, your insecurities, your thoughts, your point of view in the grand scheme of the universe, and that, in itself, invites the idea of becoming so big that you're now aware of just how small you are, which would usually have one wanting to retreat back to their small stature and standing in the universe. Becoming big is an important undertaking in becoming an adult, and this song properly expresses that, both in the very silly lyrics that are diegetic and about the events of the story, but the instrumentation that switches from being low-key and chill to grandiose and majestic, like you're a child in your home playing with your toys, and the next moment you're an adult flying through space. It's a scary thought, much like growing up in itself. By now, you've probably figured out that this is an April Fool's video, and that this subject of top 10 songs of the century so far has been nothing but video game songs thus far. The point of this video isn't just to trick people like a much longer and ever-escalating Siva Gunner video, but to truly show those who look down at video games and video game music that the art found in them isn't just limited to beautiful visuals and deeply affecting stories, but it can be found in the music as well. Whole entire narratives are woven into each note, each lyric, each key change, and the best game songs go above and beyond providing background music for any given moment of gameplay or cutscene. Sometimes they can inspire others. They can make them feel joy, fear, catharsis, any emotion you can name, like real music. Exactly like real music. In 2006, the electronic music duo Daft Punk would release their film Electroma, an avant-garde science fiction film depicting the pair living their life in peace before coming upon a town of humans who all looked upon them as freaks. They elect to get surgery to have their own horrible human heads grafted onto their robotic masks so as to live in this town with the others. Yet in mere moments their faces begin to distort, then melt, as a sign that no matter what they tried, they'd never be accepted by this society of people. Fleeing to the desert, they walk the sandy wasteland in search of a civilization that would accept them before the silver-headed robot, Thomas Bangalter, stops. Without a word exchanged, they communicate that Thomas wishes to end his life, asking the gold-headed robot, Guy Manuel del Homem Cristo, to assist him as he cannot end his own life. Once the self-destruct sequence is initiated, Thomas begins to walk away some distance so as to not harm his friend once the time comes. This rings in the end of the film before Guy Manuel follows him to the grave in his own way, and it also rang the end of Daft Punk. In 2021, the pair uploaded to their YouTube channel Daft Punk Epilogue, announcing the end of their musical career as Daft Punk with this very scene. The biggest difference is that Guy Manuel doesn't take his own life like in the movie. Instead, he continues walking into the sunset alone. The video is scored by a unique version of the bridge of their best song, Touch. Touch is the tale of a machine learning what it means to become human in musical form, beginning with their electronic mind remembering the concept of touch before slowly taking their first steps into humanity, walking and then running into what touch means and human connection, asking for more to understand what it all means. It leads into this beautiful, grandiose collection of various instruments, full of love and wonder and passion, before it begins to slow down as their life begins to come to an end. A singular mantra is repeated: hold on. If love is the answer, you're home. As it's repeated, a choir of voices join the initial vocals before reaching this moment of a spiral downwards, leading to the portion of the song heard in Epilogue. The big difference is that in Touch, the final moments are punctuated by Paul Williams, whereas Epilogue is finished by the choir of voices repeating that mantra. Regardless of which version one would prefer, this is, in my mind, the best song made this entire century. To tell the tale of humanity so beautifully that's also difficult to ignore is a feat that's impossible for lesser musicians. In a world where the idea of being human becomes muddied and corrupted by the actions of those with more power than most, it feels ironic that a musical duo that did their best to hide their identities and portray themselves as faceless androids that made music were able to capture the human condition in a way very few could. Anyway, so I'm dropping the weird lecture type voice to close out the video. So the main reason why I decided to give mini dissertations for each of these songs rather than just letting them speak for themselves is because of the context for each of these songs is why they hit as hard as they do. Unfortunately, that's something traditional, conventional music has over game music. You usually don't need context in order to fully enjoy it. I feel, at least for those I listed before, you still don't. But the full context is what makes them work the best. You don't need to know about Futaba's tragic childhood, or how the Scions beefing it really bad inspires you to keep going. The context isn't necessary, but it helps a lot, and actually experiencing these songs when they occur is what makes them so fantastic and worth listening to over and over and over again. Anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching!